You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Greetings, Starfighters. It's Sean from the Rusted Robot Podcast. Join me and the Rusty crew as we break down the latest geeky movie trailers, talk about TV, comics, toys, games, casting news, and all things nerdy. Find us on all your favorite podcast apps, the ESO Network, and at therustedrobot.podbean.com. The Rusted Robot Podcast, your source for geek since 2014.
The Rusted Robot Podcast. Think about it.
Hello, and welcome again to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. I am your host, the Monster. Stop laughing, Gene.
You're not saying anything funny.
So, for today's podcast, I am joined by two guests. You know this guy, Mr. Gene here.
Yeah, thanks for pointing. That's good. That really looks really good in the podcast.
Of course, pointing at you. And my other special guest is Tony from Cinema Viewfinder.
Hi.
So we are back once more since 2009 talking about Star Trek again. This time we're talking about the series, season 2 of the Star Trek Discovery. So we're going to talk about that, refer back to a previous podcast, as in I predicted something that kind of came true, and I want to kind of get your opinions on. But before we get started on those two aspects, we have some Star Trek news, which we haven't done before. But in light of the ending of Discovery for season 2, we have 4 or 5 Star Trek series that are going to be planned, or some in the works right now. So I kind of want to talk about this and kind of get your feedback about your thoughts on the new series. Let's start off with the news that Tony mentioned earlier. Is the new animated series on Nickelodeon. You want to talk about that, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, if people were looking at their, news feeds today, then they probably saw that Nickelodeon is releasing a new animated Star Trek show. And what I found curious is that it seems to be a very off-brand show, considering what we've had in the past. According to the press release, the series will, quote, follow a group of lawless teens who discover a derelict Starfleet ship and use it to search for adventure, meaning, and salvation. So, I don't know. What do you guys think about how far afield this show seems to be going?
It doesn't give a time frame as to when it takes place, right? It's just...
Right.
Okay.
Don't you need a whole crew of people to run a starship, or is it going to be like a Remember Me situation?
If you look at Star Trek 3, you don't need 5 people.
Stay on the bridge. You'll be fine. No one goes down to engineering.
It could be a tiny starship. It could be the
a shuttle, but it's all voice activated.
Yeah. Computer.
Yeah, don't do that.
Siri. I think... Okay, we kind of danced about this with the fact that, okay, Star Trek is back on the air, so to speak, but it's behind a paywall. And if we're trying to, for Nickelodeon, try to rebrand itself as its former glory days and jump on the Trek bandwagon, I don't know if the new kids on the block, so to speak, will grab Star Trek in a way that we have grabbed onto Star Trek, like when we had our own animated series, but it was based on these previous characters from TOS. I don't know if we're going to get the exact same kind of feels with a brand new cast of people who are teens. I mean, it seems like Starfleet Academy days, like with Wesley performing that.
I was curious about that, if you can remember the name of that team, that squadron.
Yeah, and that they're a bunch of rascals and doing hijinks everywhere, and now they get to be their own commanders of their own adventures and kind of grow up, and learn responsibilities or things like nature. So there's like Starfleet on the go. I don't know. I'm kind of worried about that because it's not really on CBS. Not that it matters, but I don't see Nickelodeon and Star Trek working in my head for that channel.
I mean,
what about your thoughts, Gene?
I don't know. I honestly think that if you're gonna do it, you've got to sell merchandise. Because if you're gonna watch the show, even the Picard show is in jeopardy of this, and particularly Discovery. There's no merch out there. McFarlane had a license to build toys that they rejected because they were like, no, it's too risky. It's not going to work. And the fact of the matter is that with Discovery for season 1, Netflix paid for that. Foreign Netflix paid for it. And for season 2, they didn't do that. And there's nothing out there to represent Discovery. And if it hits, if you like the show, you got to get the T-shirts out to the people or lunch boxes or whatever so that, to advertise, to represent. If you don't do that, it doesn't work at all because who even knows when it's on? You may vaguely know because you're pop culture aware that, it's on CBS All Access. But when? How do I get that? You know what I mean? It's not, if you don't have representation in the merchandising division, if people aren't wearing your shirts, it's not going to work. Even Star Wars Rebellion came out 6 months ago, and there's toys on the aisles already at your local Target. That's great. I look at that and think, I haven't seen this show yet. I should look into this. That's my opinion.
I don't know. I'm gonna give a counter argument to that because I've noticed that lately merchandise in general seems to be a little more stagnant than when we were younger. I see it reflected in Legos, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Every time there was a new Marvel movie, there were a bunch of Legos that would come out associated with it.
That would spoil
and
it,
then
yeah.
now it seems like they just sort of stopped keeping up with the movies because the Legos were just sitting on the shelves, and so I'm not so sure that merchandise is the issue necessarily. I don't think that the show is suffering for any viewers because from what I've read, it seems like it's one of the highest rated non-network shows that there is.
Star Trek Discovery?
Or at least, in terms of, it wasn't ratings they were measuring, but they were measuring the amount of stories and comments on the internet. And they were showing that next to Walking Dead, Discovery was the next most discussed show on the internet. And I saw that on Reddit.
Okay. Now, is it positive spin or just talking about it in general? Doesn't make a difference one way or another?
No, they were saying that it was positive, that it was well regarded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing, and I think Netflix also had a problem with certain shows, that if they had released a new show that weekend and it didn't get that kind of buzz, it was kind of like, well, they're not going to renew it. And I don't want to say that's the only criteria to continue a show, but the fact that they spent, and I think the other thing too is that if they haven't spent so much money on Discovery, we wouldn't need to worry about the whole idea of merchandising because they spent so much per episode.
But I don't know. But the thing is that this goes against, this is an experiment. CBS trying to get you to pay for their services, their new shows, but we've only got one show so far, Star Trek Discovery. But the thing is, Star Trek hasn't been on television for a number of years now.
Right.
And so it's got that nostalgia, and I get what they were going for. I love season 1. I love that it's cinematic. It doesn't feel like it's on a goddamn sound stage anymore. The effects are amazing and it feels like it's a movie. I really enjoyed that, but it fails in other areas.
It's not just the one show anymore though. It was the first show, but they've been building on that by introducing, now they introduced the Twilight Zone, which is another household name, and I think that they're going to continue doing that. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys got this, but yesterday I got a survey sent by CBS All Access.
I have it in the notes showing that too, asking viewers to think how to give feedback about the show, the viewing experience, and things of that nature to help improve. So yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it seemed to really be getting at the kind of questions we're discussing now. Like they were asking questions like, okay, now that Star Trek Discovery is over, are you going to continue to subscribe to CBS All Access? And if not, why? And are there other shows you watch on CBS All Access? And you know, at one point they were asking who your favorite Star Trek characters were this season. And of course, you know, I put Captain Pike, you know, so maybe we'll get a Captain Pike show out of that because I'm sure everybody else put Captain Pike, you know.
But Gene, you have a good the issue about are you going to continue with the series? I mean, will we continue with CBS All Access after the series has ended?
Yeah, I'm choosing not to do that. I last year I was like, wow, I'll keep the subscription going because I want them to get more money. You know, it's what $5.99 out of my pocket every month. That's nothing to me. But this year I'm like, I wasn't happy with some of the decisions you made creatively on the season 2, so I'm going to withdraw my subscription until it comes back, or you bring back the Picard show. Then I will restart from there.
Right.
That's because I don't know. And here's a question for you also. What happens in November? On November 12th, when Disney's All Access thing opens up, you know, that's going to change the plans for everyone. Because Disney did it right. Disney's like, we're going to do all these, here's everything, you know, and we're going to create new content like pretty much right away. So I'm like, all right, I don't know.
I think Disney actually may have been influenced by CBS All Access in this respect, which was Disney knew it was an interloper in this already established field, and they said, you know what, we're going to come in with a really low price point, $5.99 or $6.99, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that immediately puts Netflix on notice because Netflix is charging like $13 a month now.
They just raised their prices. Yeah.
And I mean, and to be honest, I just canceled my Netflix because now that they canceled all those Marvel shows, like I have no reason to watch Netflix now until Stranger Things comes back. You know?
That's in July.
Right. And that's also the same thing like with Game of Thrones. Like, unless you're going to be watching backstories or just to catch up, then there's no reason for you to have HBO unless that's the only thing you want to see is just Game of Thrones. So when the show is over, my subscription goes. When a new season becomes 2 years later, then I'll restart it, you know. So there's no loyalty.
You know what? Like, what they're trying, what HBO is doing is what these other networks are trying to do. They're trying to get enough series that overlap so that,
it continues.
You know, like, for example, you know, like for me, once Game of Thrones is over, yeah, I thought about canceling, but I'm like, oh, wait, I watched Big Little Lies, so I'm going to stick around for that. And then after that, Westworld will probably show up, and I stick around for that, you know, and soon, before you know it, I don't have a gap there where I can cancel.
Right, and even the new Watchmen
I think
series
that's,
will be
yeah,
also,
right. And I think that's what Star Trek means to CBS, because I'm sure that they've developed 6 Star Trek series so that they can have them overlap as soon as one ends and the other one picks up, sort of the way that Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead work. You know, now they're coming up with a 3rd Walking Dead series. So
yeah, but the problem lies is that they don't have that right now. Picard is not going to be, I mean, it's filming now.
Right, by the end of the year.
Yeah, but the end of the year. And then Discovery sometime in 2020. And then everything else, yeah, maybe it will line up then. But Disney really has kind of more of their ducks in a row. You know, heading off with The Mandalorian right off the bat.
Right.
And I think it's them dropping the big Disney dick right on everyone's face and just saying, you know, deal with this. So...
But I'm going to also remind you guys, Disney probably has more of a bankroll that they can
definitely
work with.
They do. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
So they can do that, whereas I think CBS is just taking the tack of doing it unrolling it slowly over time.
No, I know. And like, unlike Netflix, that is now going to spend another $2 billion in original content just to kind of keep it going. And I'm like, it's like an arms race. But honestly, I think Disney really has now become a serious threat to everyone else, that it can blow everyone else out of the water. Meaning, I may not go back to Netflix, or I may not want to choose Hulu. And kind of choose and pick the winner, so to speak. And I may just have Amazon Prime and Disney, as my two choices. So it depends on what it is they're going to offer. But
yeah, so basically the idea is that we're getting to essentially is in the future, it's all about streaming.
yeah,
It's about choosing the right streaming service, maybe multiple ones, but then staying on top of your bills and programming, and keep on top of that. So cable's dead, essentially. I mean, cable is so expensive now. I still have cable because my mom is elderly and she likes to watch her cooking shows, but I'm paying $60 a month for that, which is ridiculous. That's a whole year of the Disney stuff.
yeah.
So I'm like, I got to cut that off as soon as I can and just.
Yeah,
stream.
well, but you know what? Like, I mean, even that there's better alternatives to that because, like, I get Hulu, and I can completely cut cable out because if I get Hulu Live, then I have all the cable channels on Hulu Live.
Yep.
Plus the Hulu content. So to me, that's a better option. It's less expensive that way. So cable's dead.
Yeah. Basically, the only positive thing about Hulu now, because now Disney has the majority stakehold in that company, is that they could technically bring over the Netflix shows, put it on Hulu since it's more R-rated, and not have that worry be on Disney Plus. So that's the hope I think they do. So let's put that aside and let's talk about the new Picard series. It is now filming, finally. This is taking place after the 2009 J.J. Abrams, so it's the Kelvin timeline, which...
So Romulus has been destroyed.
Yes.
20 years ago.
Right. So the events...
Right, but it's not the Kelvin timeline.
No, but that's what happened originally, because that's what happened to Ambassador Spock in the 2009 movie.
Right. So this is what we're doing. We're talking now about a Kelvin timeline series in which Picard, through the way the situation has happened, is not necessarily the same Picard that we know.
How's that? Because I would imagine that it's the original timeline where Spock tries to go back in the past, or because he tries to save Romulus, I think, right? But then he gets sucked into a wormhole, a time thing.
Right.
He goes to the 2009 universe, starting out a new alternate timeline by him going back there. But the timeline's still continuing without Ambassador Spock.
But then...
But that's not the Kelvin timeline.
It's not the Kelvin timeline. It's still the Prime timeline.
Right. It's just Spock went back in time and disappeared.
Right. Like Spock left, he disappeared, and he created the Kelvin timeline like a branch.
No, the
Prime timeline.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying that because the events have been different. Kirk's dad should have survived because his dad is dead.
Right,
But that's what I'm saying. That's not in that story. So there are minor events like the death of Kirk's dad.
No, but the thing is that's because Spock opened up the hole, and then what's his name?
I know. What
Eric
I'm saying,
Brenna opens up the time thing.
But that's what I'm saying is that in the TOS, his dad, had died, not in that event.
Right.
So
you get to see.
Right. So what I'm saying is that
Kirk become captain.
Things are different. The fact that we have
no.
Yes.
And what we're telling you is that does not impact this timeline at all.
Right. It's a classic timeline. It's Prime. It's Star Trek Prime.
Right.
No.
Like, yes.
Go back and read the notes, Monty.
No. And the reason why I'm saying that, because if they're bringing it back, the whole thing with the JJ's universe.
They're not.
They're not.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be 20 years from the, what was the name of the movie that finished it? Yeah, Nemesis movie. 20 years from that. Shortly after that, Spock goes back in time to save Romulus. He fails. Romulus blows up. And then we go from there. But none of the timeline doesn't come into...
the only event that they share is that that Romulus exploded, and then from there, Spock is propelled back in time, but he's not propelled back on the Prime timeline. The Prime timeline continues to exist on its own. He's propelled into the past and create a parallel timeline.
Right, like in Back to the Future
which is the
too.
I
Kelvin
understand
timeline.
that. What I'm saying is that that's
But
not
his
the case.
Picard will not be impacted by anything that happens in the Kelvin timeline.
Right.
This Picard will continue to be governed by the Prime timeline. And the reason I know that for sure is because CBS All Access, or CBS Studios does not have any rights to the Abrams verse. They only have rights to the Prime timeline, so they cannot, do anything to.
So, Monty, why don't you tell us about what you recorded last year? Huh? That'll make you feel better.
You can eat me. All right.
You got so quiet.
No, because the thing is, I'm really, just like when we talked about Discovery and how this look is completely different from what we see in TOS, and then we're supposed to accept that 10 years down the road as, no, the ships will look like that, so they downgrade. No, I didn't buy that. They accepted these changes to be updated. The 25% rule and all that fun stuff.
Right.
Okay.
From Midnight's Edge that we listened
Right.
to and learned about.
So that's where I'm like, when we talk about, we'll play the audio from a couple of years ago, the changes that I think help resolve Discovery's problem. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I just think that it just feels weird that you're talking about the events of the 2009 movie from J.J. Abrams. You're making reference to that. But it contradicts the fact that if CBS All Access doesn't have access to this, why are you setting this in that area, much like this having Discovery 10 years before the original series? So this is the problem that I'm getting.
But they're not setting it in that area.
Okay.
Like think of it like a house with many rooms, and Spock lived in this big room where all the shows took place, and then as soon as Romulus exploded, it propelled him to another room, and Spock was no longer in that timeline. Like he still existed in the past, but his time in that timeline was over, and he ended up in another timeline, like a parallel timeline created by his thing or whatever. The first timeline still exists, still keeps going.
Wait, that was a brilliant to the 2009 movie.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just move on.
So when they said that Picard is a very different man, they just meant he's not a captain.
Well, he's not in Starfleet anymore. It's been 20 years. He's retired.
Yeah, he's a senior citizen now.
He's an all good things captain. No, he's not. He's a vineyard guy. All right, so we'll see how that turns out. We have Alison Pill, who is just recently added to the cast.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know anything about the plot other than it's going to be taking place well after Nemesis, the last Star Trek Next Generation movie. They
started filming on location this week,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw that they're filming in Napa Valley, it looks like.
Right. Okay.
So that fits in line with the whole vineyard thing.
Right. The other thing is let's move on to another series, Section 31, which played a big part in Discovery Season 2, which I thought...
Why? Why? It's a secret organization.
That was
What
the
is this
worst
control
part.
bullshit? What is this control shit? I hate this. That's my personal opinion. Sorry. I broke
That was
Monty.
the worst part of the season.
I hated
by the
that.
way.
Oh, he's dead. No, he's a puppet.
So
Jeez. So
the
that's-
very thing that made DS9 really incredible was giving Bashir this new line of working for Section 31, and it's just the one guy. And he just shows up out of nowhere in his room, asleep. And I'm like, it starts off really interesting. And now you kind of ruin the very thing that made Section 31 special.
I mean, it was even interesting when they came out in Enterprise, when it turned out Reed was working for Section 31. And
Mhm.
and then it was even interesting in that horrible movie, Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yep.
Uh,
So they
But
made reference to
now-
that. Yeah. But now it's a whole thing. That I'm like, wait a minute. Now everybody knows that Section 13, got dyslexia. Section 31 exists. But now we have a whole series that is going to be sometime in the future. Michelle Yao is going to be part of this or heading the whole cast. I'm like,
No, that's not possible now. She's 950 years in the future.
unless she left the very last moment, it's like, I'm done. I did my part. Bye.
yeah, somehow she's going to end up back with Section 31.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know that she's going to end up back in 22nd century or 23rd century Section 31. You know, but somehow she's going to end up back with Section 31. Now, I'm not so sure that we needed her show to be about Section 31. Why couldn't they just have done a show about, you know, Captain Giorgio Intergalactic Adventure or something, you know, like.
I missed the first 2 episodes in which she was not the Empress from the Mirror universe. I wanted that captain to kind of be like, I would have been kind of cool to find out more about her.
The Shinjo captain. I love the Shinjo captain. I was okay with it opening that way. I was very happy with that. I'm like,
But now we got, you know, this very pansexual, overly sexualized.
but her dialogue is hysterical. She's got 1 or 2 lines and it's funny.
It's like, did you just call me Poppy? I'm like, what the fuck, man? I don't believe
Yeah.
what they're doing this.
You know, the other thing, too, is that I think sometimes people forget some of these characters are good in small doses,
Yeah.
but I don't want, like, a whole show revolving around them, you know? And I think I've said this on this podcast
Mhm.
before. Like, you know, like, I like Fonzie and I like Kramer, but I don't want a whole show revolving around either of those guys.
Yeah.
Just like I don't want a whole show revolving around Captain Giorgio.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. But as we find out, Tyler is now going to be running Section 31. I'm like,
We'll never see him again.
I hope we don't get to see him again. That was such a waste of a character for this season. You don't know what to do with him.
There were so many convolutions in this second season, though, for me. I mean, all right, we're going to bring back... You like Culber? We're going to bring him back. And then he's not going to be in love with Stamets anymore.
Yeah.
And then he's going to be in love with Stamets again. At the end, you're like, what the fuck is this? It was so melodramatic.
That's what I was telling you. That's what I was telling you guys. They seem to be responding to the fans too much.
Yeah.
Like the fans were like, "Oh, bring back Culber."
We love
Okay.
that gay relationship, and that's fine. But it's like, could you not have done that quicker? I don't understand what we're doing here.
So
The only thing they could have done was not kill him in the first place.
Yeah, but
all right. So aside from Section 31, which we have no idea when that will take place and what facility, who knows. But the other one is called Lower Decks. This one is kind of like a behind the scenes with lower ranking officers or those who kind of do the day in, day out dirty work, like, I guess, janitorial staff or maintenance people that we see life through their eyes and things of that nature. That's the only thing that I know of it. I'm just thinking, there was a whole episode on Next Generation
called Lower Decks,
which was fascinating. It was fantastic, and it was heartbreaking how
she died. Yeah,
supposedly
she went her secret mission and she died.
Supposedly died. I still believe she's alive, but she's dead.
It's because she was cute.
Very cute.
Well, we know that this show is also going to be written and produced by the guy who does Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
I forget his name. I think of all the shows that are coming down the pike, the most promising ones to me are the Picard show and Lower Decks. Because Lower Decks, like, I feel like I don't even need to know what it's about. That I just trust that Rick and Morty guy to make it funny and clever and good. Like.
Or he could get the pilot
Rick
show.
And Morty itself,
Dan Harmon. Was it Dan Harmon?
I'm not
That's
sure.
the Rick and Morty guy.
But Rick and Morty itself was very influenced by Star Trek. So.
Yeah.
And Back to the Future.
All right. So, we have a couple of things to look forward to. Now, since we didn't have like any Star Trek series for a very long time after Enterprise, is this too much too soon? Or is this the right kind of speed for Star Trek fans to kind of rejoice? I'll leave that question to you, Tony.
I think that I would have been more concerned about oversaturation if Discovery was as long a season as the original shows. The original shows were 26 episodes a year. Discovery is only 14. So I feel like all they're trying to do is extend the franchise to last year round. And so I'm okay with that. As long as there's always one show of Star Trek, then I'm okay with that. I don't want it to get to the point where I'm having to watch 3 Star Trek shows at the same time.
Okay. What about you, Gene?
I don't know. I'm unsure. I'm uncertain about the future of Star Trek at this point because the movies are done, right? They're not going to come back for. I don't think it's going to come back. So this is the only outlet for Star Trek we have now, logically, and so it's behind a paywall, and they're just throwing noodles at the wall and seeing what sticks. If it's going to catch the public's imagination and more importantly their dollars, is it going to hit? Who knows? I hope it works. I'll keep watching it because I'm a Star Trek fan, but I'm not a Star Trek purist. I'm like, that's fine. I don't care. But every episode I watched for season 2 that I didn't enjoy, it was that gut, that knee-jerk reaction kind of thing, But then a day or two later, a week or two later, when I calmed down, if I watched it again, it wasn't that bad. It was like, all right, I can see why that happened. But it was like the nausea's passed. Okay, I'm all right. That was a little bit shaky, but I'm better now, and I can accept it more. But we'll see. I mean, I just want quality programming. And to have a beloved character like Picard come back, of course I'm going to come back and watch that.
Yeah, I think I'm a big Picard fan just because Next Generation was my Star Trek that I grew up with. Not that I didn't enjoy the original series.
You got to watch it live.
We got to watch it live, right from the very beginning. And that was my captain. Now we're seeing, this new series. Yeah, I really want to see him again. I just don't want them to really fuck this up badly. Because if they do, then I'm not going to be happy with anything else. And it's just like you don't mess with something that's iconic as that character. Which, unlike they did like in Discovery with Spock, which I was just kind of very blah about, I couldn't give 2 rats' asses about how he looked or how he acted or what he was motivated by. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't establish anything cool about what Spock was. It was just a guy in a suit who has that name. So I'm hoping that Picard does not have that problem, that it's an extension of the person that we know in a different way. That's all I care about. So, all right. So let's go to, before we go into deep dive about Star Trek, I'm going to pause the podcast, but I'm going to put the audio of what we talked about a couple of years ago, in which I felt kind of redeemed over the past weekend just listening, watching Discovery. So I'm going to pause real quick. Hold on.
Black alert. Black alert.
But I think that Monty gets hung up on the continuity of it because it all has to fit together for him.
And that's what they said they were planning to do. And right
I
off
mean,
the...
continuity is important, but I think that as long as it loosely feels right,
Right.
I'm more interested in getting people to see the thing that I've always loved. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I can share it with people. Yeah.
I agree. And you talk to someone new. Have you watched Star Trek? Well, no, but I like science fiction. Okay, what kind of science fiction do you like? Because there were different openings. There were different, shows that you can introduce people to. But the whole concept of exploring and getting out there about different conflicts, where are you socially, sociologically, just learn more about the world.
Okay. Here's two solutions for me and for all the other nerds like me.
There are only a handful of you.
That's more than enough. That's enough to get me off. Is that this should have never taken place 10 years before.
It doesn't matter.
No. It does. I'm saying
I'll let you go.
It should have been after Voyager. If we're doing this right, let's set it completely new. We have a clean slate, and let's just forget what has been done before. That's one option.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why
No
you didn't do
prequel.
that.
Hold on.
Okay?
Hold on.
We can come back to it.
Hold on.
We can come back to it. But
Let me-
Monty's waving
I-
at the screen, David. Tony, I'm sorry.
I got the second option, and this is when just hearing you guys talk, is that they redo the original series.
No, they can't do
They
that.
Oh,
They've already done
no.
the Kelvin timeline.
No. They have to redo it leading into that series. Now, granted, here's a problem. One, if ratings are not doing well, we're not going to get another season of Discovery. We may get that new storyline of Khan, and this becomes an anthology. So then that rules it out altogether. But if they want to treat this like a full series, let that last episode, here's Kirk, here's the crew, and it's the Enterprise. But it's now this generation's Enterprise, yes, like they did in 2009, but you're going to have to then make it, from that point on, that universe. Not kind of retroconning it, but you are in a sense. You're redoing that whole universe, but for the small screen. That's how I can buy it from this point on.
Black alert. Black alert.
The thing that I felt vindicated was that now that series is now 950 years in the future, well past Voyager, to do what? Who knows?
This was a really weird season, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they had course corrections throughout the entire thing. Even the main supporting cast, Ash, Stamets, Tilly, none of them had any really strong moments. They were just, maybe initially they had one or two scenes, and they all had representation, but they were superficial.
Right.
There was absolutely no depth to any of them. And fine, you met the bridge crew, and that was fine. And they had names, and that was cool. One of them got to go on an away mission, which was so amazing. And she didn't get killed. That was great. And Lieutenant Arya, I think. Ariam.
Ariam was the one that got killed.
Right. She gets a whole episode. That was fine. But the thing is, what was the purpose?
Yeah.
They course corrected in the middle of the season to go to the future, I
Right.
believe, because it was like, we're still not hitting our demographic. Change everything.
Yeah.
And there's so many producers. 16 producers on a fucking show. I'm
And
like,
I like, when you told me
oh my
about that,
God.
I started counting right from the very opening credits, and I'm like, holy shit, that is just way too many producers, too many cooks in the kitchen to do a series like this. And the thing, they're bringing Michelle Paradise, and Alex Kurtzman is going to be, I guess, well, he's having her being the showrunner, but oh my God, it's just a lot. And then two, the Enterprise, the very last thing we get to see. They spent money on an Enterprise bridge that was all up to date, and yet they had the nice color scheme of the orange railing and certain highlights. And I'm like, that's what I want.
that's not what you're going to get.
No, we're not going to get a Pike series, but I'm saying that's what Enterprise, and that's what TOS is going to look like. And that's fine.
Right.
But you would
and that
have-
continues on in the current timeline.
Right.
It continues to have its adventures.
And that's exactly what you needed to do, is to do that. Not us, except TOS, as that's what it's going to look like from 10 years. So you eliminated Discovery from being part of the canon.
Nitpicker.
Don't call me a nitpicker. Racist.
Really? No one's going to get that unless they listen to the previous episode.
I know.
And they're going to brand me.
But that was my thing, is that it fixed that problem. It's no longer, which we'll talk about that in the ending, but it fixed the problem of the canon that it was running into, and the look of Enterprise is not the exact same TOS, but that's supposed to be the Prime universe, not the Kelvin timeline. So it fixed that problem that I had too. So those are the two things I felt like, okay, at least they did something that felt correct in my book. So Tony, what were your thoughts?
I don't know. I feel like the original concept of this show, when Brian Fuller pitched it, was he wanted every season to be like its own anthology series. And he wanted it to skip around different eras. So, in a way, this will fulfill some of what he had originally intended. Now, you know, the only difference is they're going to fulfill it with the same cast and crew. You know, like, I feel like I'm glad I saw Captain Pike, and I like seeing the Enterprise and all that, but a little of it goes a long way, and I feel like focusing too much on it detracted from our crew and distracted us from that. And it played a lot like fan service, you know, like, oh, let's go back and see Vina and the Telosians again, you know, like, really? Like, do we need to see those people again? I mean, it was cool to see them again, but I'm not sure that I feel better about their depictions on the show than I do about the way they were originally. And so, like, that kind of stuff felt a little hokey, you know?
Now,
seeing Spock again felt hokey.
Right. Now, you made a statement. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, remember what you were going to say, but what I was going to say is, like, really we're supposed to believe that the whole reason we've never heard of Burnham or the Discovery is because they suddenly came up with some way of making it top secret information. Like, that's stupid, you know? Like,
it is.
Just like it was stupid that we had never heard of Cybok before Star Trek V, you know? Like,
but that's now canon. Kind
yeah,
of.
I know. So what is canon? It's still stupid, you know? Like,
let me ask you, Tony, were you surprised that Discovery got renewed for a third season? Do you think?
Say that again?
Are you surprised that Discovery got renewed for a third season?
No. Discovery's going to get renewed for as many seasons as it takes for CBS All Access to establish itself, because that's their flagship show. Like, as soon as they cancel Discovery, they're going to lose all their subscribers, so they can't afford to do that.
Even with their other programming involved, the Twilight Zone and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take another few Star Trek shows to get up and going before they put Discovery in jeopardy.
All right.
So I don't think that's the thing. Like, you know, and then what you were talking about, Monty, about how they didn't really focus on any other characters. Like, this is the Michael Burnham show, like, which I do not necessarily like, you know, because number one, I don't think Sonequa Martin Green is the best actress, and number two, like, they've made her character into a superhero to the point where I'm like, you know, she's like Kirk, Spock, and Picard all wrapped in one. Like, she can do anything. And number three, I'll be so pissed if they continue to have Burnham cry in every single episode. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, every single episode, Burnham cries. Like, that's just, like, now you can make it into a drinking game. Like,
I have. I've done that, yeah.
Like, it's, every episode is, like, emotional catharsis for Burnham. I'm over that, you know? Like, they need to start branching out a little from some of their cliches, you know?
Right. Before we go into our picks and the highlights and lowlights of the series, I wanted to go back to a statement you mentioned earlier about if this is something that you would introduce people who have never seen Star Trek, would you still stand by Discovery for season 2? Or would you just show them season 1 or not show them at all and just show them something else to get them into Star Trek?
I don't know. I still would introduce them to season 1, and let them see that. I mean, it's not a bad show. That's not when I criticize it, I'm talking from a place of love where I'm like, it's an okay show, and I just want it to be better.
No, I understand.
I disagree with you. I think it's a good move that they're jumping to the future, because the whole problem with the show has been that it's been constrained by canon.
No, I didn't say
and now they get to go to the future, and they can just write their own show, but they've gotten us at least caring a little bit about these characters, so they know that we'll go along for the ride,
No, I know, and I didn't say I didn't disagree with that. I'm saying that's what they needed to do.
And Monty's happy about that.
Because that's exactly what they did, is that they made this jump
Right.
so that it's a clean slate. And I think that is what they needed to have done right from the very beginning. So that's fine. They want to go in that direction.
I agree with you. I'm not sure that they could have done it right from the beginning, because I think they needed to hook people in, and that would have been too big a leap. But now I think it'll work, and now I'm interested in seeing how this ties into that short Trek episode Calypso, because Calypso takes place not too far after wherever
50 years after.
Right, which I was going to ask, because I watched that episode after I finished the finale. They jumped 950 years.
Right.
But the ship says it's been out there for 1,000 years.
And it's sentient now, which is weird.
So is it just 50 years after the crew is gone? Or is it another 1,000 years after it arrives, 950 years in the future, meaning it's now 2,000 something years later? Do you know if it's the 950 or is it?
No, I don't know the answer. I mean, I would assume that whatever the dialogue said, I would assume that the actual intention was just to make it within 50 years.
Okay.
And the reason being because some of the other dialogue references the Federation still existing at that time, but in that time they're considered bad or criminals or whatever.
Okay.
And so I think that would make more sense,
Okay. Only because, if the crew is gone, not gone like dead, but like they abandoned the ship, and they told the ship, okay, don't leave. Whatever you do, don't leave.
Stay here. We'll be back.
We'll be right back. I felt kind of bad because I'm like, this thing is now self-aware and encountered this guy who obviously there was some kind of romantic feelings for, in a weird way. But my question is, as the season was ending, Leland is trapped in a spore drive room and
dead.
And he's dead before they even make the leap. So the question is then...
But they don't leap, they go through a wormhole.
Why? They didn't need to.
You can't use the spore drive anymore because of the lawsuit.
Right. So that's to me, aside from the fact that no one will ever talk about this, is why did they even have to do this if they defeated the very thing they prevented from getting the information? So it just seems kind of, huh? It doesn't make sense.
Do you want them in the future or not?
You can't have it both ways.
And look, it was really cool when they went through the wormhole.
Yeah,
it was like a book cover. I'm like, that's awesome. I don't buy you have all these ships. I don't buy that the Enterprise gets into the torpedo and they get fucking repair drones that pop up. I'm like,
yeah,
I can't swallow that. That's just no. Okay, but all right, I'll just keep drinking.
Like watching this show is different from watching all the other shows in one respect. and that's that. I think that this show, as a movie, let's say, like the cinematography on the show is beautiful.
Mhm.
Like, and in a way, if you look at the history of movies, movies are more of a visual medium than a plot-driven medium. It's TV that's plot-driven, and in a way, this show is more like a movie. Like, you can turn the sound off and watch it, and you will know what's going on, even if you don't know the details. And I like that about this show. Like, this show looks beautiful. The whole battle sequence in the last episode, and the way that she got propelled into all the different times and the future and all that was gorgeous. And the kind of stuff I've been wanting to see more of in sci-fi, So I forgive the show a lot when it comes to the details and all the nitpicky stuff, because I'm like, who cares? The show looks fantastic,
Yeah, but the problem lies, Tony, is that it has a lot of style. There's no doubt about that. It just lacks substance. It lacks the emotional connection to, should I give a crap about Burnham or Saru or to the chick with the fork on the side of her face? You don't care enough for us to be feeling like, oh my God, they're going to be in danger, or like they shouldn't be doing this, or like I feel empathy or I feel joy for them. I mean, there are times it's just like I don't feel any kind of connection. The very thing that I love about Saru, which they kind of hinted at, that now he lost his Gangula, that he's no longer controlled by fear. And I'm like, oh, so now he's going to be more of a badass. And they kind of have like, now he can shoot out darts or whatever that thing is. But then they stop halfway through the season, and then that's it. There was nothing more about Saru. And that was just like, but
It's never going to be perfect, Monty.
No. I know that.
And
I'm just saying, it's like you gave him a moment, but then it didn't have another payoff to kind of like, now it kind of fits in.
The thing is, I think that what you have, you need an emotional attachment to these characters.
Right.
And in my opinion, you have to earn that. But once you've earned that with me,
Right.
you can't lose that.
Right.
So for me, season 1 hooked me. I love this character. I love this show, I have no problem with that. Sure, this season was a little weird, a little weak for me, but I'm still watching it. I don't watch it with the enthusiasm that I used to. I imagine, though, that when you come home and you turn it on, you sit back on your couch with your arms folded, waiting to be disappointed. Is that possibility?
Yes.
See, I don't sit there like that. I'm leaning forward.
No. But then you call me afterwards. So you like this happened.
But the thing is, again, that's the knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
Because I go back and watch it, and I'm like, all right, now I've got 16 ounces of alcohol in me.
But let's listen to what Gene's saying, though. Like, I mean, continuity has always been a problem on Star Trek. Okay,
It always will be
in this show. Like you guys were less focused on the original series than me, but like I've watched the original series a bunch of times, and there's huge glaring continuity issues. Like, for a while, James was not James T. Kirk; he was James R. Kirk.
No, I know.
And
wow.
then, it wasn't the United Federation of Planets. It was the United Earth Space Agency.
No, that...
There's all
I know. That's
kinds of crap.
No, I get that. But I'm thinking at this point is that if you're building this cinematic kind of series, and I think because you have 16 producers, that this is what's going to be happening even more so. So you have all these different inputs, but yet nothing feels cohesive. I still don't understand the concept, and this is just me just trying to analyze the whole point of Burnham being the adoptive ward of Sarek. He explains that he wanted to adopt her to bring some kind of
empathy
empathy
right.
to Spock. And Amanda couldn't do that because she's human. And I'm like, I don't completely understand that whole motivation, let alone why couldn't Burnham just go to back on Earth to family and like she's not a war child or a war bride, whatever you want to call it, to be in that situation. So I never felt like that explained that relationship until they were more adults, and then you saw the bickering back and forth. I'm like, I kind of get that relationship, but it didn't feel like it made a complete sense.
No, but you're right. It's contrived. I mean, it's totally contrived. The only reason to do that is to just be able to bring Sarek and Spock and Amanda on the show. That's it. But those are the things where I'm like, okay, when something feels contrived like that, then I'm just kind of gonna not pay attention to it too much, you know, like.
Yeah, but you don't want to. You feel you want to be invested, right?
But you can still be invested. Just leave it. I mean, it's a family. You know, you listen to the origins of my family or your family. Like, how did these people come together? How is it possible that Gene exists when Gene's parents don't kiss or have contact, but Gene is still here? Where did Gene get his personality when Gene's parents are stoic and quiet? You know, my parents never hugged each other. But I'm still here. You know,
but I'm more invested in you than I am in Burnham because you're interesting.
I'm a person. These are characters,
right?
But it doesn't.
Right.
I mean, look, the entry into that was terrible. You know, I admit, but you just got to go with it.
I know, but then you expect us to have this grand finale, which is like it's Star Wars up the wazoo, and in the moment, no, let's have a conversation while this is going on.
Yeah, that didn't make sense.
I'm like, can you not have done this?
You have a timer,
right? And the episode before,
listen, the reason you're not invested in Burnham is not because of the continuity issues. The reason you're not invested in her is because she's a sucky actress.
No, I disagree. I like her performances.
No, I don't think she's fully
like
developed.
Tilly, you know, Tilly is a good actress, and that's why she's everybody's fan favorite.
I would say that yes, but even Tilly was getting on my nerves.
The guy that played Pike made Pike his own character, which I thought was pretty difficult to do after Jeffrey Hunter. You know, like
yeah, I agree.
But he did an amazing job. I liked his style from moment one. The choices he makes,
right, and
I believe that
Tilly was to me that perfect counter to Burnham, and I love that. But season 2, it was just like too much Tilliness.
And then not enough. And then
so it was just like too much. Like you tapped into the very thing that I liked, and it's like, oh no, you needed to dial back and give other people a chance to shine. Like Ehrman, who had that one episode and he hold that whole backstory. I'm like, you know, it just felt again very uneven to give us a good send off. You know, so
yeah, they should have started that much earlier. Yeah.
So that was my only thing. Is like I'm like I said, every series iteration, we get to know these people, whether we know, like, Yoshi, who on Enterprise is their communications officer, and, you know, or, you know, Odo from DS9. We get to know these people somewhat. I still don't know half the people on this damn crew, other than Burnham.
Yeah, well, but I mean, if you go back to the original, we didn't get to know any of those people too well. It was just Kirk, Spock, McCoy. That was all. And maybe
but, you know, Hora was there, Scotty was there, and Sulu and Chekhov. So I mean, we eventually.
But you never got to know them. I mean, you never got to know Sulu any better than you get
at
to
least
know
I know
Detmer
his.
on this ship.
At least I know his name.
You can memorize the names of the people.
I mean, Detmer is the one who is
the fork, right?
The fork,
yeah, right.
You know,
and they've got strange names.
Yeah. So putting that aside, the one cool thing, I mean, aside from Pike, which I love, I like the new security chief that was coming over from the Enterprise.
Naru?
Is it Naru or Nan?
Nan, maybe it's Nan. You're right, it's Nan.
Who I dug a lot. I thought she was a kind of a cool character. So there's a kind of lot of...
She's a Barzan, you know that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So...
You remember they came out on Next Generation.
Right.
Yes. So that's kind of
And that fucks up on her later on. She's the
right.
thing
I can't breathe.
God damn it, Velma, get contact lenses.
Which I think is cool because it shows that they were at least watching these other shows.
So that's the kind of shit I'm like, see, you can do stuff like that, and you can be cool. So those are the little moments that I was at least felt like, okay, season 2 is not that bad compared to season 1, and there was vast improvements.
Your Tig Notaro, which you love.
Oh my God! I thank you for reminding me. Jet Reno is by far like move Stamets out of the way. Let Jet be that person. She is like the McCoy and Scotty rolled into one. I fucking love Jet Reno so much. That's the kind of biting humor that I love.
She made the jump into the future.
I know.
Hopefully we'll get more of her.
So it's that kind of genuine character, and she doesn't have to have a lot to say, but when she says it, it's touching. The moment that she had with Culber and how they had similar wives, and how you should go back to Stamets and make Culber realize his mistake. That one moment made me a fan of hers just because she is so damn relatable. I still feel cold against Stamets, against Culber. I mean, it's Jet Reno, it's Tilly, and Burnham, if I'm going to add her to the list, in that order, So I want a lot more stronger women characters. I was kind of disappointed that number 1
You had 3 episodes.
didn't get enough because I was just like so damn happy that we're going to see something more about this character other than she eats a cheeseburger with Tabasco sauce with the hot sauce.
No, look at that. So what?
So, but it's that's the kind of fan service I'm okay with. You don't have to beat me over the head, but I would love to have seen more of number 1, so to speak. Was there anything that you liked that caught you by surprise, Tony?
I think what most caught me by surprise was how much I liked Anson Mount as Pike.
Yeah.
Like, I knew he had the look, but he really brought, like, this personality to Pike that, for me, felt like something we've been missing in Star Trek for a long time, which is just, like, this cool, decent captain, that was more in the vein of Kirk and Picard and not in the vein of, like, Archer and Janeway, which those people always seem to be, like, Archer and Janeway always seem to be thinking, not thinking before getting into situations,
Well, I would.
And I thought this guy was thoughtful and still a man of action. And
I would blame Archer being more getting into ahead of himself, whereas Janeway, I think she's
in the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, so I mean that's the kind of thing that I'm like, no, she's kind of my hero in that sense. Even the Year from Hell episode proved, that she's willing to go down, and fight dirty and get things done just to save her crew. I don't think necessarily Picard will do that, but push comes to shove, they would all do that. But I wouldn't necessarily put Janeway and Archer in the same boat, though. That's just my sense. But
they're not similar, but I'm just saying that they were not
as relaxed, as hopeful.
They were not as diplomatic as Kirk and Picard were,
Okay.
No, Kirk would fuck everything.
Diplomatically wise. So,
no, but I mean, but he was he still knew how to practice diplomacy. He was trickier about it, but he still knew, it was more aggressive, but it was still diplomacy.
Okay. So Jane, what were your highlights?
I not too many. I like the show overall. Still, it's still a great looking show. It still tweaks my imagination. I liked that they did the short trek tributes. that just about every short track except the Harry Mudd one they went back to. I liked the way that this was a whole more rounded season overall. The people in the church would go back to that. This is how that happened. I was kind of weirded out, like at the whole, like, oh, it's my mom in the time, jumpsuit, and I'm gonna go back forward 950 years to find her. Maybe I'm like, all right, that's kind of weird, but okay, I'll go with it. Because again, I like this crew. It's fine. You're now 950 years in the future. I have no idea where the heck you're gonna go. That's fine. I like that. I'd like to ask a question though, guys. Generally speaking, do we know of any successful prequels that's out there? Because it's really hard to make a successful prequel. I mean,
what do you mean? In what sense? Like Star Wars?
Star Wars? Any prequel? Has anything been successful? And then you went back and it's still successful. Because it's really hard to do prequels because of the continuity thing. Anyone know about any successful ones? I'm just curious. Top of your head?
Not top of my head, but if you give me a chance, I'll think of one.
Because it's hard to do. I mean, the only thing I can think of, like Knights of the Old Republic, with the video game, which is like 400 years in the future from Star Wars. That worked, but the prequels didn't work.
Well, no. I would disagree with the prequels. Because as they got past Jar Jar and young Anakin,
and they hook on to the
Clone Wars and the New Hope, and I thought it got better over the years with the sequels. Not necessarily the first one being fantastic, but it had to set up so much more that the other two didn't have to rely.
I understand, but I'm like, all right, I know the prequels are okay. I don't like them that much. They're okay, but then Rogue One comes along, like, yeah, Rogue One works, but not the just.
You can argue the 2009 Star Trek is a prequel because it's
you could, yes, okay, and that. Oh, I'm just curious. I'm sorry to throw us off.
No,
but I don't know this. It was all right.
I mean, the inherent problem with prequels is, if you think of it as a writer, it locks you in because it's like with most writing, you start the story and the story kind of takes you to where it should end. And here it's the reverse because you got to end. You have an ending that you need to get to, and you write the story to get you to that ending.
Right.
And that limits you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the problem with prequels.
It's a risk.
That being said, I mean, it's not thought of as a prequel, but it is a prequel. I love Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
That's a good one.
Favorite prequel.
Yeah, Short Round can't stretch that far, but I'll just give it to you.
Yeah, but it's not much of a prequel. It only takes place a couple years before.
Well, I would go, and just a quick moment in the Last Crusade, the origin of him getting the whip, getting the cut on his chin, and being afraid of snakes. So in that one, like 10-15 minute sequence with River Phoenix establishing who he is perfect. So, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to start to wrap up this podcast because I have to go pick up my daughter.
Oh no, reality is here. Run.
But are we looking forward to a season 3? Like, in all honesty, are we that excited for season 3, or like, well, we'll see what happens? I'll leave it for you, Tony.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to know what they have planned. Like, it's always exciting when they do something unexpected with the narrative. Like to me, it was like it's almost like when they did the big time jump in Battlestar Galactica, like that.
Yeah.
To me, kicked the show into a different level, and I'm hoping that this will do that to this show.
Okay. What about you, Dr. Gene? It's getting late.
I'm looking forward to it again. I have no idea where they're going. I feel really bad for the writers, though. The people that put that all together, because all the producers like, we're doing this. We had a meeting. We're going this way. I'm like, okay, wait, how am I going to do that? Who are these characters? Okay. But hopefully they have a hiatus. Hopefully they can fix things, get their shit together, and I hope it'll be great. But again, they're in the right timeline now. They're away from everyone else. Have fun with it and keep things interesting. That's all.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be Star Trek Borg. Like, hopefully the Borg will not have assimilated the entire universe.
We completely left that out altogether.
Oh, I talked about Control. I hate that.
Yeah, the fact that people are trying to make Control the new Borg, or the Borg is going to be the predecessor, and stop trying to make this happen. It's not. That was the one thing I could have done without, but whatever the case is, it's done and completed. But my thing that I'm thinking about how it's going to be for the next season, and I'm sure you guys have not seen this, but drama that had to do with this ship that was kind of like its flagship, like in Starfleet, like the Enterprise, gets sucked into a wormhole into the future in which that Starfleet, that Federation, has collapsed. So you have this lone person that still carries on that tradition of what it means to be in Starfleet, or those lofty goals, in a new future. So I'm wondering if that's what's going to be happening with Discovery. It's like, well, they're going to try to police the galaxy, so to speak. But honestly, other than putting the ship in the future, I don't think they realize, well, what are you going to do when you get there? Just sit there? You're going to have to do something.
That's for the producer to decide.
Right, exactly.
The powers that be will decide that. And we will judge it when it comes back on.
I'm more concerned about who's going to be captain.
Right, which that could be a power play, but I'm like, please let it be Saru.
I hope Saru, yeah. I don't think
so. But on that note, unfortunately, I'm going to have to end things with the podcast. And we'll pick it up when there's another discussion about Picard, or at least that first episode drops.
All right, cool.
So thank you again, Tony, for joining me, and you too, Mr. Gene.
My pleasure.
And remember, you can always follow me on the various social networks. You can always email me on behalf of these two. If you want to add your comments to the podcast, I'll be happy to add that as well. But that's by sending an email at monstersci-fi-show@gmail.com. So again, thank you for listening to us on the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. It's sci-fi from a certain point of view. Good night.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon, or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.